So hey, what's going on there, Chris? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Martin. Thank you for bringing me on to whatever disaster this is about to turn into.
Yeah, hey, so for my audience out there, this is Chris Gutkes. He is the man at Island Elevator, and his story's out there. So I'm not gonna make him tell the story of his life because he hates to do that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about a couple things. One is we're gonna share how it is to go from being a hands-on extraordinaire technician to literally being airdropped into owning a business and having to totally switch gears. So I'm going to get Chris to talk about that. And I just want to talk about elevators, man. I just don't know much about them. All I know is you just walk in there and hit a button, but there's a lot more that happens. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So just kind of touch on the first thing. You're saying airdropped, which sounds really nice and formal and official. I usually refer to it as falling into a ditch. Because it hurts when you hit the bottom, and then you got to try to figure a way to claw yourself Am I allowed to curse on the show?
I don't care.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let it rip.
Fuck out of there. Because guess what? You can't stay there. It's not an option at this particular point. So anybody that doesn't know, I've spent my entire career trying to become the best elevator technician possible. My father hired me on, then he passed away suddenly, and next thing I know, I had to go from the field into the office and start to learn an entirely new skill set, things that I was not exposed to prior to that, and that I've spent basically the better part of the last 7 years trying to give myself an apprenticeship and to try to find my own mentors and my own instructors and my own inspiration, people that I aspire to be to in order to learn from them, to try to get in the same room with them. I basically just kind of mimicked the experience that I had being an elevator technician's apprentice, and I did something very similar in order to try to bring my skill set up to where it needed to be in order to support the 30-plus member team that we have here at Island Elevator and the hundreds of customers that rely on Island Elevator to doing the right thing every single day.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back a little bit. So what was your mindset as a tech? So if the workup I got on you is that you didn't come out of high school thinking, man, I'm gonna be just like my dad. I'm gonna be an elevator mechanic.
Fuck that. Everybody was an elevator mechanic. I was fourth generation elevator mechanic. So my grandfather was in the union. My father started a company, but all of my uncles, my cousins, everybody's in the business. So the only thing that I knew was elevators. And if I wanted to stand out and be my own man, then I had to do something aside from that. So I went ahead and I did what every well-thought-out 18-year-old does. He goes down to his local recruiter's office, believes everything that the Army recruiter told him, and signs away the next 4 years of his life.
So the government wasn't 100% truthful with you, huh?
Yeah, he made it sound like it was going to be like spring break every day. He's like, oh yeah, everybody's hanging out in the barracks, and it's going to be great, and it's ridiculous, it's absurd. So one of the stories is that I signed a little book, and while I'm signing it, I'm signing away my life for the next 4 years. They're like, okay, what job do you want to pick? So I pick a job because right next to it says that I'm going to be an accountant. It's the civilian equivalent is an accountant. So once it was literally like an hour later, I'm in a bus on the way to the plane. I'm not even at basic training yet. I just got done signing my name, and I'm telling the other guys in the bus what I signed up for. And they're like, oh, well, what did you sign up for, Gutkes? And I said, well, I'm going to be an accountant. They're like, an accountant? Well, that's very impressive. What's your MOS, which is like an alphanumeric code that identifies what job it is? I said, well, I'm a 92 alpha. They were like, oh, you're not an accountant. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? I'm not an accountant. They're like, well, I'm a 92 alpha, which means that you're a supply specialist. So that means that I spent the next 4 years accounting nuts and accounting bolts until I got my opportunity to kind of thank you for your time. It's time for me to go off and do my own thing. And when I went off and did my own thing, the first thing I did, as anybody would do when you get out of the Army, is try to find a job right away, as quickly as possible. So I turned to my father. He let me in. I said, this is just going to be a holding place. I'm going to go ahead and enroll in school. And I think I wanted to be a teacher or something like that. I kind of like that experience of being able to bring knowledge to other people. So he put me out there, and it basically took like 10 minutes. I fell in love with the industry. It kind of hit on all of the things that that kind of drove me to, it hit on all of the things that gave me satisfaction and value and enriched myself. They talk about like a good day's work when you get home when you're working out in the trades or something like that, or feeling an ownership to the story when you build something. For me, it was a lot of problem solving. So I really liked challenges. I like challenges that were not only difficult in the moment, but in order for you to become highly technically skilled, it took you on a story arc that took years, maybe decades. So when I first got into the business, my grandfather pulled me aside and he said, by the time you know everything there is to know in this business, you'll be too old to do it. So I knew that that's exactly where I wanted to be, because there was going to be this lifelong challenge, this lifelong enrichment. And I was never going to be the best, but I really enjoyed trying to be the best.
Yeah. All right. So what habits did you have to deploy to be the best? Like nuts and bolts. What's the secret sauce for you, for Chris?
It's so simple that I'm almost embarrassed, right? It's really just about, number one, it's mindset. You have to have the mindset to want to be great before you ever will become great. So you can't wake up with your hand out and expect somebody to give you all of the things that you decided that you wanted. You have to want to go out there and have just an insatiable, grinding, hungry, addictive, habit-forming obsession with becoming great. And then to realize that you cannot allow anybody to stand in the way of your ability to, or your mission to become great. So when I came in, I was a helper. The things that I knew that I needed to do right off the bat is I needed to earn my mechanic's trust, and I needed to learn this trade as well as I possibly could. And I came in with the mindset that I'm not a helper, I'm a mechanic in training, right? So I'm already a mechanic. I just don't know the things that you haven't told me yet. And by coming in there and making sure that I was at work on time and every single day, and forget about taking days off or, work-life balance or whatever this bullshit is that these kids are worried about so much these days. When you're in your 20s, the thing that you should be focused on is becoming an expert at something, right? If you're not an expert at something, then you're not useful to anyone. And the only thing that I wanted to be was an elevator mechanic, and I knew that it was going to take every bit of energy and effort for 4 years just for me to be able to become the mechanic. And then the big shocker was that once I became a mechanic, I realized how much I really didn't know. Becoming a mechanic is almost like, if you're familiar with the martial arts, getting your black belt. Getting your black belt doesn't mean that you've completed your learning. It means that you've started your learning, right? But you are now reaching a level where you're able to teach somebody else and bring them up, because black belt is like the bare minimum for you to be able to earn your cohorts and your colleagues' respect. So when I came in, that's the only thing that I was looking for.
Yeah, that's good. One of the unique things I would think about, working in the elevator business,
And in all fairness, I just want to touch on one more thing. Yeah. I didn't have the skills, right? I was not super mechanically inclined. I didn't know how to read a stick ruler at the time when I first came into the business, but I learned, right? So, and the arc of learning how to add and subtract the fractions and then calculate everything on a stick rule or a tape measure in a very short amount of time so that I become more useful to the mechanic and help him bring the jobs in on time. I was able to figure that out and then become an expert at it over the next, month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it was, long enough to where I could fake it for a little bit. And then I'm studying, I'm going home, I'm playing the numbers over in my head. I'm making it my business because I know that this is a skill set that I need to learn in order to get the things that I want to get. I'm sorry if I interrupted.
Yeah, no problem. So the term mechanic, you're referring to like the journeyman, the more senior guy that you were underneath. Yes. Okay, great. All right, good.
Yeah, when I was a helper, which now they refer to as apprentice, and I was an apprentice at the time. I was kind of like in that transitory period between my father's generation and the current generation, where we were referred to as mechanics and helpers. Now it's journeyman and apprentices.
So one of the things I was thinking about with elevators that I think is sort of unique is the life cycle of the equipment that you're dealing with can span 5, 6, 7 decades, right? In other words, it's because
longer.
Yeah. So I was thinking in my world, the HVAC business, if you had a piece of equipment that was 15 years old, that was old, right?
Yeah, and throw it out.
Yeah, yeah, you're just going to change it out, and you don't have those options so much in an elevator setup because, I mean, it's a major undertaking. I'm sure they do upgrades to elevators and things like that, but it's probably pretty common for the mechanic on an elevator to go out there and see some kind of a gear gizmo mechanical piece of equipment that's old, could be his
It depends on which
grandfather, right?
department you're in. So
Yeah.
the elevator industry, even though we're an elevator subcontractor, there's different departments that
Mm.
people kind of find their niche in, right?
Mm-hmm.
The elevator industry is in itself is a niche within a niche within a niche.
Mm.
But if you go ahead and get down inside of that, then we're saying that there are different departments, and often enough, although there may be some jumping and some cross training across those departments, because the elevator industry can be complicated covering all of that equipment that's out there. Once you get somebody that shows promise or they're good, you tend to kind of keep them in the area that they're going to be able to continue to progress. Because like I said, even if you were good at maintenance or troubleshooting or repair or something like that, you're never going to be great. You're never going to be the best, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's always another level that you can learn up to and get to the next level. But
Mm-hmm.
you've got if we were to start from the life cycle of an elevator, you've got new construction, which means that we show up to a building. There's no elevator. There's just a big hole right through the center of the building. We put an elevator inside that. Then there's inspection and testing in order to maintain the compliance. There's service and troubleshooting in the event that the elevator shuts down, and repair in the event that the elevator needs like parts or assemblies or maybe even marginally complicated repairs that extend over a day or two.
Mm-hmm.
After that, once some of the equipment starts to reach the end of its life cycle, then we're looking at modernization in most cases. In
Mm-hmm.
some cases, you'll have like a rip and replace. But in most cases, because the steel members, there's nothing wrong with them, the things that deteriorated and kind of like crapped out are the ones that come under the most wear and tear. And that stuff kind of comes out of the shaft. And a majority of the equipment comes out of the shaft. And then you go ahead and you replace that with new equipment. So that's called a modernization. So that's
Yeah.
basically the life cycle of an elevator. And then once you hit your first modernization, then you're going to go back to inspections and testing and service and repair. And then in 20 years, 25 years, you'll hit your next modernization. So
Mm-hmm.
every 25 to 35 years, you're probably looking at a sizable capital improvement that involves your vertical transportation equipment.
Mm-hmm. What's your biggest challenge as a business owner now?
Boy, you really pivoted out of that, huh? We went tech, now we're into the business side.
Yeah.
My biggest challenge as a business owner, I would have to say, because we're a merit shop, training. But I think that even the union shops, although they have a more collective approach to training, a more centralized approach to training. Everybody struggles with that because we have to be able to not only familiarize yourself with the equipment that you're comfortable with, that you learned over the last 5 to 10 years, but the equipment that came the 20 years before you, and to set the table for you to be able to learn the next generation of equipment that comes for the next 15 or 20 years.
Right.
So we're constantly pumping in training. We're constantly pumping in safety, which requires another level of training, because the elevator industry in general is a dangerous industry. There are fatalities. I think there's probably anywhere between 2 and 5 per year, every single year. And it isn't necessarily in the construction department only. It could be in the service department, a lot of caught betweens, pinched, crushing. There's all types of hazards that can happen there. And then there are just regular general run-of-the-mill career-ending injuries like fingers and arms and toes and stuff like that.
Right.
So
how about finding people? Like, are you experiencing, or is your industry experiencing the same shortages that all the skilled trades are right now?
I don't know about the industry. I couldn't speak for them. I could speak for Island Elevator and some of the other companies that we speak to. Is it hard to find people? It is hard to find good people. You can always find people. I could go to the bus stop and find people, but I don't know if I want to put them in an elevator shaft.
Yeah.
And then the problem is that with elevators specifically, but the skilled trades generally, there's a big commitment in order to be able to get you from point zero all the way to where you need to be in order to become a verified mechanic or journeyman. Because what people don't realize, if you're not in the skilled trades, is that apprentices or helpers, however you refer to them, are basically useless. They're on the books. They're basically an expense. They don't do anything. They don't make you any money. what my brother, who's also an elevator mechanic and works with us, says. He said, if my C clamp could get me coffee, then I wouldn't need a helper. So it's they need to understand that you have to be able to come in and create value and then improve value, and it's really all about you, right? And we're giving you the training, we're giving you the opportunity, but there's a weird amount of people that just don't really take it and kind of push it forward. So if they can't push it forward, because we spend so much money and it takes 4 years to bring you to fruition to where you can actually go out and be trusted on your own, or even more so, be trusted with an apprentice. Now we're talking about giving you the responsibility of the job, right, and the safety of yourself and the safety of the public and the safety of this guy who doesn't know shit about shit.
Right, right.
So it's hard to find those kind of people.
So let's say you get a journeyman or a mechanic that's got value. That, in other words, this person's got his 4 or 5 year plus in. He's producing. How in demand are those types of people in your industry? If they're floating around out there. Let's say somebody calls you from Michigan and says, "Hey, Chris, I here's all my certifications or whatever." How in demand are those types of folks to you?
To me, they're not really that far in demand because every knucklehead that's an elevator mechanic thinks that they are the best elevator mechanic. But even mechanics that have had 10, 20, 15 years worth of experience, when you make a transition from one region of the country to another region of the country, there's different codes, there's different pieces of equipment, not wildly different, but there's a variation in there. And the same thing goes when we're talking about Island Elevator. So we're on Long Island. We don't have any high-rise buildings. So you get a lot of these guys with 20, 30 years experience in the city, in New York City, got plenty of high-rise, plenty of these super complicated issues. Bring them out here, put them in front of a hydraulic elevator, and they make pee-pee in their pants because they don't understand. Right. Like, oh, man, I haven't seen this in the last 20 years. I'm like, okay. You're still an elevator technician, blah, 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 blah. So just having 5 years and living in Michigan doesn't necessarily qualify you to come here and work here. You're no matter where you go, even if you go to another company in Michigan or you're Chicago or South Carolina, there's going to be a learning curve. So we go right back to training, right? So what is your ability to seek out and accept new knowledge and new training? Because that's going to be the difference between your ability to succeed and what may hinder you.
Yeah, and that's one of the challenges too. Sometimes people with a lot of experience and background are actually harder to train than the.
It's how I've always done it.
Yeah, so I've done it that way for 25 years. So this is how we're going to do it.
It makes me so angry. I can't even explain to you how angry I get when I hear that term.
Yeah. Hey, so let's talk about dollars and cents. So we did some research and we looked at the highest paying skilled trade jobs, and in elevator and escalator mechanic always pops up, right? I don't know. So just out of curiosity, so let's find, we got a superstar mechanic. He's got 5-6 years in. Chris likes him or her. What's a wage range that's actually being paid to these people these days?
Well, Island Elevator is a different company financially. We do $6 million a year. So our ability to get overscale employees is a little bit more difficult than like some of the larger companies.
Right.
So if we were talking about some of the smaller companies, we're probably talking about anywhere between $80,000 and $100,000 a year.
Okay.
Plus benefits, plus 401k, plus car, plus. Right. If you go into some of these bigger cities, you work on some of this more complicated equipment, and with a bigger company, larger profit margins, they're able to share that revenue with the employee. And you could be talking about, I know some elevator personnel are making anywhere between $165,000 and $225,000 a year. And then you throw in, that may or may not include some overtime, over scale, over this, over that. Basically, if you're good enough, you've got the company over a barrel, right? The only thing that separates you, don't fucking think that you're going to come to the elevator industry and just because everybody else is making some money that you're going to make money. You're not going to make shit, okay? The only thing that you're going to make is you're going to make headaches. What you need to do is you need to make yourself into a valuable asset. Now, oh, well, I don't want to be working all this hard just for this goddamn company. It's not for the company. It's for you, right? And then you can take that skill set anywhere in the country, right? I can go ahead and leave Long Island, and I can get a highly
do you currently work in skilled
position
trades,
in
or maybe
Chicago,
you're thinking
in San
about
Francisco,
getting into
in
skilled trades?
Philadelphia, in
Well, I
Miami,
have a free
right? Because
ebook.
people
It's
with my
called
skill set
Introduction
are
to
in a
Technical
hot-
Excellence.
are
Now,
in need,
this is
right? They need
not
people with
specific
my
to
skill
any
set.
trade. What this book
you don't get it
covers
just because
is
you
the
ask for it. You get
mindsets,
it
the
because you
habits
earn
that you
it, right?
need
You don't get what
to
you
become a
wish for, you get what
millionaire
you work for.
quickly
Yeah.
working in
No,
skilled
that's-
trades. Trust me,
could've
it's
said that
definitely
better than
doable. Go to
The more money you can
skilledtraderescue.com, the
Yeah,
Discover
yeah.
page.
With those
Just
numbers
scroll
you
down
put
a little
out
bit,
there
you'll see
line up
a
with what
form
we
you
found
fill
out.
out. We keep
You know,
all
it's,
email addresses
seems like
Escalator guys
confidential,
do
no
really
BS.
good.
You
Yeah.
can unsubscribe at any
So what
time,
you got is like
and you'll
the
immediately
elevator and the,
get a
it seems
copy
weird,
of this
right? Like
introductory
elevators and
ebook.
escalators together.
I hope
but
you enjoy it. I hope you get a
got
lot of
lumped
value
together
out of
inside
it.
the same code.
Definitely
Right.
tell your friends
That's
about
exactly
it. It
right.
helps you out too.
They got associated.
Well,
to the
let's
same
get back
union.
to our
And the
podcast
same union
today.
and all this. Even inside the elevator industry, which population-wise, demographic-wise, is like one of the smallest ones inside the skilled trades. There's millions and millions of electricians and plumbers and HVAC and steam fitters, right? But population-wise, because when you're building a building, you need a lot more electricians and plumbers and HVAC than you would need elevators, right? You could have 2 elevators, and those 2 elevators, anywhere between 2 and 10 or 12 stories, you could put both of those elevators in with 2 people or 4 people, but that's it. You don't need any more of that because you can't have more than 2 people working inside the shaft anyway. You don't want anything dropping on your head.
Yeah, well, you're in what we call a very specialized trade, and there's so many
and then
facets.
Inside that trade, you've got the escalator guy. So I have 0 experience on escalators. I've never touched an escalator. And an escalator is not exactly the same as an elevator. So I'm familiar in like book learning, theoretical learning on escalators. But even inside, like here, I think that there's probably like 4,000 or 5,000 tradesmen and women inside Local 1, which is the largest elevator union in our area, right? There's a couple of elevator-related unions. And inside that, there might only be like 10, 20% of them might be escalator people. So it's like, it just gets smaller and smaller. And guess what? You know, Elon Musk says that the size of your compensation is directly proportional to the size of the problem that you can solve. Right? And it's simple economics where if there's only a handful of select people that can solve this escalator problem, then they get paid more. That's just how it is.
So let's speak to, the high school sophomore, junior, and they're having that, evening discussion. If they do that these days, I don't know if that happens much in homes, but there is the pressure that these individuals, boys and girls, are feeling is, you got to do something after you get to high school. You can't live here all your life, right? So let's say we have somebody, that there's somebody listening to this podcast, and they're like, well, do I want to go to college or do I want to learn a trade? And that, they're like, wow, I never heard of elevator work being, didn't think about it like that. Chris really connected with me. So let's say they have an interest in it. What would be actions that they could take to start the process to getting hired on with the Chris, or getting hired on with somebody that can bring them up through their career? I mean, what would be the pathway?
Well, it's
to
hard
do that?
because you don't necessarily have like a conventional funnel that you would go through, like say, for example, a BOCES or some sort of extracurricular, training or something like that.
AP class, and yeah. Right.
You got tons of HVAC schools, right? But you don't have elevator schools unless you're already in the elevator trade. So you kind of gotta know somebody, but that's really that's just a small portion of it. When it comes to trying to get hired through a merit shop, you kind of got to know somebody. If you want to try to get hired through a union shop, good luck with that, because again, we're a small demographic, which means that there are few positions that are open and there are lots of people that are attracted to it. So just like when you're trying to apply to a college, what are you bringing to the table, right? And even if you would want to go down to your local union hall and sign up as soon as you're 18, get on the list. What they do is they usually run you through a pre-qualification test to make sure that you're not a complete idiot. If you are a complete idiot, then please try to get your parents to give you the truth. Just a little bit of truth will save you a whole lot of aggravation. So Then you go down, you fill out the thing, and then if you get a decent score on it, they're going to give you a call. If you flub the test, then you're never going to hear from them again.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get prepared for that test, there's plenty of places that you can go on the internet in order to kind of prep yourself to understand basic mechanical action reaction and some simplified math and measurements and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you get called, like let's say, for example, you get called by Island Elevator or another merit shop or the Union Hall. So the Union Hall turns around and they're like, you know what, Martin, you did it. Now get your ass down here so we can get a good look at you. And so Martin comes down, they fit him up. They tell him, all right, listen, you're coming in. We're going to make sure that you pee in this cup and that you don't have anything in your system that can immediately eliminate you. We're going to give you a little safety test, and then we're going to send you out to your union shop. The union shop, though, has what's called a probationary period. So if you're an idiot and you slip through there somehow, guess what? They're going to figure it out, because you can always sniff out a pretender probably definitely within the first month. I don't think that anybody has been able to kind of slide through where we didn't at least say, all right, we know who this person is and we're going to keep them on, even though we know that they're going to be a little bit difficult or they're not super motivated. But again, it's all about value. How are you improving your value? So if you want to improve your value while you're waiting to take the test, then go out and get a job that's going to improve your value today.
Like what? What would be a good job that you'd hire? Yeah.
It's usually easier to get a job in a skilled trade with a merit shop or whomever or through the trades that hire more volume of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go out. If it was up to me and I had to start all over again and I didn't have a connection to get me into the elevator trade, I would go out and I would go and join the electrician's trade. Okay. I would go out and get a job doing construction work for HVAC, getting a job doing for anybody. I don't care. Get me out there in skilled trades. Get me practicing hoisting and rigging. Maybe sign me up as a lineman, right? An electrician's lineman. So let me measure stuff. Let me rig and hoist stuff. Let me move stuff from the truck safely over to let me learn about basic safety needs. Then when I get called, I've already got this baseline value that they don't have to bring me up from zero, right?
Right.
If I have a proven track record, I show up on time, I'm ready to go. As soon as you get me out there, I'm doing basically the same thing, but now I'm doing it in the elevator trade.
So, what you said, electrician would make a lot of sense because you guys deal with a lot of electrical stuff in your work.
We deal with a fair amount. We deal with a little bit of every little trade. That's how the elevator trade was involved in the first place.
Right.
There's a little bit of the carpenter. There's a little bit of the ornamental iron workers. There's a little bit of the operating engineers, the plumbers, the electricians. Right? They all wanted a piece of that when they were divvying this thing up. And then finally, somebody stepped up and said, no. We got to have one trade because this is public transportation, right? We can't be having a million chefs in the kitchen. We need one trade that's going to be responsible for this entire installation, for the most part, as much of it as they possibly can. So that we can hold one trade responsible.
I think you touched on something there, Chris. So really, what you're saying is there can be a really long tail on if there's a specific skilled trade that you want to get into, and there's a process to that, and processes take a boatload of patience to do it. So if I'm hearing you correctly, if Island Elevator needs an apprentice, they call it now, and you don't know of anybody, or let's say you're expanding into a new market or something like that. Somebody comes in your door that's been a second, third, fourth year apprentice as an electrician, and they've got references, right, from people that they say, hey, here's a guy I work with. You're going to have a lot better chance of landing a job with Island Elevator if you've got something that crosses over. And that happens so much, like electricians, and then a lot of electricians that get burnt out, yanking big, thick wire through conduits, they jump over into controls. It's all electrons, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, you're coming in and you're going to go ahead and you're going to have something. You're bringing value to the table. Like if I had somebody that came in that there was like a third year electrician, at number one, I would be like, what's the matter with this fucking person? Because why are they here? They should be, you think that they'd be building value so that they become electrician, but maybe they just have a passion for elevatoring, and they want to come here and start at the bottom, which,
Yeah.
you know, hey, listen, if you're here, I want you here. Let's giddy up. I mean,
Yeah.
we've hired people that were 15-year elevator mechanics from Europe. So, dude from England comes over here and he wants to get settled in. So we're ready to go. Let's get this thing going. He's willing to start from the bottom and work his way up and show his value. Then I'm willing to give you an opportunity. You know, what am I to say?
So I know I hit you up with one business one, but I'm gonna switch over to the business. So I want to talk now to the.
Thanks for the warning this time.
Yeah, no kidding that. So I want to talk about, you know, the go-getter technician who's at the top of their game. They've learned how to fix stuff. They've gotten, you know, excellence in that area, and they're thinking about what's next. So a percentage of them say, you know, I think I'm going to start my own business, right? So back to
good luck.
You really should be a motivational speaker, Chris. Anyway,
yeah, I'll motivate you.
So anyway.
I'll motivate you to take a bath with a toaster.
Or should I cut the blue wire or the red wire? You know. Yeah.
Just hold on to both of them and plug it in. You got it, Kyle.
So your father passed away in 2016, and you ended up, boom. You know, now you're in it, and I know it hit you up. You know, the biggest challenge. What was your process? And I think getting to know you a little bit, you don't half-ass anything, right? So I'm guessing that you had a process that you went through to go from the fixing the stuff to having to deal with all the other stuff, the marketing, the HR.
Martin, you're so generous, so naive. I wish I could hug you. I love you. All right. No, there was no goddamn process. All right. I got dropped into this thing, and I was immediately fighting for survival. Because guess what? A shitty life is better than no life. Okay, that's basically it. I became captain of the ship, and then I found out in a couple of areas we're taking on water. So I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. So once we started, we undug all of the bodies, and we figured out what was going on, and we started to realize that we weren't all going to die, which was a fantastic feeling. I went to what I knew best. Go back to training, right? So I found this program. It's called Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. It's a free program that I had to apply to, and I was fortunately accepted. We went for one full day in Queens at LaGuardia College, probably about 4 times per month over like about 5 or 6 months. So it was a shotgun business basics program that they broke down into modules so that they could help to understand or help the layman or the layperson, such as myself, understand the business fundamentals that are necessary in order to run something and have it be profitable. Because guess what? If it's not profitable, there's no fucking point in doing it. All right. You want to run a charity, you work for a charity.
Right.
But you have to make money, cash flow. All right. Without cash, you're dead. So once I got through that program, that was in 2019. That's when I started to like really feel like I could do this. Right. Instead of just reading and reacting all of the time, I felt like I was in a better position to maybe actually look forward and make some plans and kind of challenge myself to that next level. But it hasn't stopped. You know, that was in 2019. It's just been, I just go from one learning environment to the next in order to try to continue to build up the skill set. And one of the things that I can tell you, if you're thinking about going out and starting your own company, is get prepared to fail, right? If you are not comfortable with failure, then you have no chance to succeed. It's the only way up is down.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
What I recommend to people is do that. Forget about starting $1 billion business, right? You're in the wrong industry. Just try to turn a profit. Keep your overhead as low as possible for as long as possible. Keep your books as clean as possible from the start all the way through so that you don't have to go ahead and start undoing things. And immediately start I'm assuming that you're in business because you've secured some customers. You need to continue to secure customers. And as soon as you possibly can, start thinking about what the plan looks like to bring somebody else on board so that you're not touching and doing everything. Solopreneurship is for idiots, right? The whole purpose of getting into business is to be able to bring other people in, share your knowledge, and then step back and watch that thing fly on its own.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I tell everybody to listen. because I started 2 businesses, and I tell everybody that I never went to Harvard Business School, but I know for sure I paid the tuition about all the stupid stuff I did.
Oh,
I mean,
my God.
Yeah, you're just
You're
like
burning money.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, going down, just throwing it out the window.
Every dumb hire, every
Yeah.
stupid idea, every shortcut. Oh, let's not buy a new truck. Let's buy a used truck. And we saved like $10,000, but then we spent $15,000 fixing it. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, one after the other after the other. So that's what I'm saying. You just can't be afraid to fail.
Yeah, that's good, great advice, Chris. That's really good.
Don't give up.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing is grit. Grit is an under discussed and not understood thing about being successful at anything you do, whether you're going to be a technician, whether you're going to be a doctor, whatever you decide you're going to do, you got to have some grit, because the first time you get the smackdown, you can't give up. You got to just get up, wipe it off, and try something. Either try it again, try doing it again a little differently, So,
and don't mistake my my words for arrogance, because I have definitely thought about giving up multiple times. The reason why I didn't is community. So the next thing that you got to build as quickly as possible when you go out on your own is to get away from being on your own. You have to get into a community of like-minded business owners, whether or not they're inside your industry. Inside your industry is better, right? Because
Right.
once you have problems, you have a resource that you can go to, as opposed to going to some like theoretical explanation that Martin may have that worked for his HVAC company that may or may not work for
Right.
the elevator company.
Yeah.
So if you build a tight cohort of other business owners, entrepreneurs, operators, supervisors, field techs inside your industry, you're going to be a lot more safer and secure. And then in addition to that, you're going to want to make sure that you have some sort of support on the business side, which is something that I didn't realize. There has to be other business owners that are outside of your family, outside of your company, outside of the people that you're friends with, right? Because you're going to be coming under a lot of stress and you're not going to know how to manage it. And the last thing you want to do is dump that shit on your wife and your kids and your friends and the people that you work with. Because here's another thing that they always tell you. They're like, oh, it's really, entrepreneurship's really lonely. It's fucking devastatingly lonely. That's why you have to hang out with the other lonely people, right? Misery loves company. That's why me and Martin get along, because we hate ourselves.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, that was one of the biggest impacting things I ever did. I joined. They had a thing called MIX, Management Information Exchange. It was something that was put on by one of the HVAC associations. I'm sure there's different things by different names around there, but yeah, that was a big deal for me because I was on the accounting side. I struggled with accounting. I just did.
Me too.
It's tough, receivables, payables, and then dealing with these banks. I hated all of it, but if I could just take care of my customers, that's all I really wanted to do. But all that stuff on the back end, you got to do to take care of those people. But anyway, the whole thing that I was struggling with all those things by myself, and then I finally got smart enough to join this organization, and they set us up with a small group of about 10 different companies. And we were in different markets around the United States. We didn't compete with each other, but we were all in the same business. And man, Chris, it was awesome because I could pick up, like if I had an accounting/tax problem that I was trying to figure out, I call up one of my companies, and a lot of these companies were bigger than me. And I would say, what do I do? And I'm talking to like a CFO of a big company, and they're like, oh yeah. And they lay it out for you, and they're willing to help you. And that was huge.
Invaluable.
Man.
And just because you join the first professional group doesn't have to be the last professional group.
Right.
You go there and it's filled with a bunch of people that you don't really relate to, or they got an attitude problem or whatever it is. You just go join another group, but you can't be by yourself, right? The ones that are out there doing things by themselves, I don't need anybody. Those are the ones you want to stay away from, right? So I'm part of 2 groups. The first group is called Data Key Consultants. That's focused mainly on strategic thinking and process development. Before that, I was with Vistage. That's more of like a CEO group, little high-level stuff. I needed something that was a little bit more granular so that I could affect some positive changes inside the company. And then I'm part of a group that I was able to get together with on through LinkedIn, as crazy as that sounds, an elevator business owner in Tim Bounds from Bounds Elevator in Louisiana. He reaches out. He's like, "Hey, Chris, what do you think about putting together a group?" So now we've got a group of like 8 or 10 business owners in the elevator industry in non-competing markets. We're on a WhatsApp group together. So people are like, "Hey, you got prints for this. Hey, what would you do about that?" We're constantly in touch with each other, trying to help each other solve problems and support each other.
Are you sharing financials?
We openly talk in general terms of financials, like, what is your revenue? How many employees do you have?
Yeah.
What's your nut on insurance? Because, in New York, general liability insurance for elevator contractors is just murder.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll share a lot of technical stuff, some logistical stuff, some supplier stuff, some process stuff. I'm in sales stuff, like what are you charging for this, that. It's really, I've been really lucky, right?
Yeah.
I would say that I've been really lucky. I've been lucky to be surrounded by the people that I'm surrounded with. Do I attract these people? I don't know, right? Maybe I'm attracted to them because I am fucking nuts and they are like super stable and cool. And maybe they're asking themselves, like, how do I attract this idiot? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do I get away from him?
Well, one of the things that, I don't know if you've experienced this, but you get so passionate about your business that Steve Jobs talked about this. You get stuck in your own reality distortion bubble or field. And one of the biggest values I got out of the mix is, networking with these other business owners. They'd call me on my crap, right? Like if I came up with this harebrained idea, we're going to use this to connect with more of our commercial customers. And if you get 3 guys that, let's say you got 10 guys in there and 7 of them are like, yeah, do whatever you want. But you'll have a core of them that'll call you on your crap. They love you enough to call you on your crap. And they'll say, well, that's a stupid idea, Martin. Why would you do it? Have you thought about this, this, and this, and this? Right? And if you're just by yourself, you're like, every idea is a great idea.
And
just ask me.
I agree with that 100% because I've talked to my GM and he's like, boy, sometimes he'll look back at some of the dumb shit I've done, and he's like, "Boy, I bet you really wish you didn't make that decision. I bet you really regret that decision." I was like, "Listen, I got to be honest with you. I thought that was a great decision at the time, and I think that every decision that I make is a great decision at the time. So is that distortion reality, or is that just me like bravado? Or maybe I'm disconnected from reality. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
All I know is that when I'm in these groups, they ask questions that I'm not asking myself.
Yeah.
Have you thought about this? How much money are you going to make? How are you going to connect to the customers? What's your value proposition? Who's your competition in the market? How big is your market? Like, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking like, this is going to be monumental. They're going to be building statues to Chris Gutkes, but they help to kind of bring you down and ground you.
Right.
And sometimes it's enough for them to be able to disrupt what is essentially a bad idea.
Yeah.
And other times it actually helps to strengthen a decent idea into a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those extra questions and those extra point of views, because you're 100% right, that distortion bubble that you're talking about, I've been there.
Everybody goes through that because you don't have to answer to anybody.
Distortion bubble. You see, everything is great or everything is terrible and it'll never get better. And those people on the outside are able to help to kind of ground you and bring you out of that a little bit.
Yeah, because the people immediately around you, you're the boss. You don't have anybody to answer to, and you have to deal with the great things that come out of your ideas and the stuff that isn't so great.
Well, I have to answer to the customers. I have to answer to the people that work at this company.
Right.
These people are the only reason why I'm even around, because there is no good reason why I should still be in business.
Yeah.
They are the ones that kept Island Elevator alive. They kept me alive. They've helped to support all of my dumbass ideas, and they've helped me to unfuck all of my mistakes.
Yeah.
So I show up and I try to work my ass off every day so that I can continue to earn the privilege of being the president of the company that they so hard for. It's just a different responsibility, That's what I try to tell people. Somebody's got to sit in this chair, and right now it's me.